Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. This is the session on modern networking strategies, how to supercharge your cybersecurity career. And we've got three experts in networking and cybersecurity to be able to talk us through it. And I wanted to bring together a panel that was going to be able to represent the different viewpoints of networking. So we've got with us today Beth Ann Bigham, who is the Senior Vice President, Chief Security and Compliance Officer for Axiom. So Beth Ann, welcome. And Beth Ann is a representative of someone in industry who does a lot of hiring. So I can talk about that from that perspective. Also with us today is Ellen Zhu, who is a Windows and networking lead and specialist, and also on the Cyber Aegis team. She's a podcaster. She's the founder of the nonprofit Zipline Theory, and she is a high school student, so, which is amazing, which is proof that it is never too young to start networking. And WE-CIS, Women in Cybersecurity, is the largest membership community of women in the world for cybersecurity support, and the executive director and leader of WE-CIS is here with us today, Lynn Dome. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you again all for being here. And I figured to get us started, if you could explain a little bit about where you are in your life and career now, how you got here, and also an example of how networking really helped you to be where you are. And we're going to go in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Beth Ann for that.
Well, thanks, Diana, and I appreciate the team that's gathered here today and all of you that are on the conference. The fact that you're here attending this conference really demonstrates your interest of helping to advance our security and compliance practices for our country and for the companies that support our ability to just drive growth for the U.S. The journey that I've been on is one of constant learning and evolving as a person and as a professional. I am very much appreciative to my current team. I have a powerhouse team here at Axiom, but my journey started, I think, where I am today. If I were looking back and talking to myself a few years ago, I would say, trust your instincts, trust the fact that you know how to listen and discern when there's problems and how to solve the problems, and not second guess those capabilities. And I think over today's discussion, we're going to hear tales about different, I think the term everyone's using right now is superpowers. And those superpowers are there for a purpose, right? They're there to help fulfill your segment of what you're to do in that security sector. So for me, I took a non-traditional route, definitely came up through what you would consider IT audit and compliance into defense. But as a security officer, those components are important because you have to talk multiple different lenses. So I'll share a bit more about that. But thank you again, Diana, for hosting today's call.
Yeah, happy to. And we actually met at an event that was an opportunity for networking, right? The Next 50.
Yes, exactly right.
I actually met everybody here through different kinds of networking. Beth Ann through a Next 50 event. Ellen, we met because we both podcast on the same platform, which is ITSP Magazine Radio, and they brought us. Sean and Marco brought us together, and we were very happy to be brought together and stayed connected. And Lynn, through my work with WE-CIS, and when I was invited to join the WE-CIS board, Lynn was I think had just joined as executive director. And so it's a how you know. So that this whole panel is actually a result of networking. Thank you, Beth Ann. Ellen, where are you, and how did networking help you get here?
Yeah, so it's great to be here among so many amazing women in cybersecurity, first of all. But yeah, I've been interested in technology from a young age, just taking part of computers. And I got into cybersecurity when I was 12 through Cyber Patriot, like you mentioned, the competition that I've been involved in for the last few years. So that's really where I learned about defensive cybersecurity and like things such as red v blue teaming. And so after 4 years of that, I was really thankful with my team to become the Cyber Patriot National Champion, which was a really, really great experience. And since then, I've been trying to teach more students, get more girls in cybersecurity as well. And yeah, in general, I think as a high schooler, there's been a huge part of networking in my journey and bringing me to where I am today. So yeah, in general, I think I like to approach networking with the mindset of how can I try to work with interesting people to do meaningful things? And so one of the ways I found that is through leading my nonprofit, or Zipline Theory. So we're really about empowering learners to explore and innovate beyond the conventional curriculum. And so we were actually lucky. Deanna spoke at one of our events for cybersecurity, which was a 3-week program teaching girls of military families more about digital forensics with the capture the flag competition, trying to encourage more career exploration with this awesome field of cybersecurity. And so we were lucky enough to work with the Department of Defense and the NCWIT with that. So yeah, I think working with a lot of cool teams, people who are pioneers in the space and trying to bring the best learning experiences and the best growth in the area in general has been a really great part of networking for me. And yeah, another way I've met a lot of interesting people is through Delta X podcast, which I host on ITSP Magazine, along with Deanna and a bunch of other amazing hosts on the platform. And so that's also been a really great way where I've met a lot of interesting people, both in cybersecurity and technology, and also in general, builders and young team leaders. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk more about networking and also get to know more of your stories on how networking has been, like Beth mentioned, a superpower.
Thank you, Ellen. And Lynn.
Hi there. So, so I'm part of Women in Cybersecurity. We often go by our acronym WECIS, W-I-C-Y-S, and we pronounce it WECIS, like we sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood. So we started with very humble beginnings back in 2014 as a conference, and it was a very successful, smashing success of a conference. And it was a proof of concept that yes, women in cybersecurity do exist, and we are here. And when you have that collective strength and the power of the community together, you can collectively rise and grow in your career because of that. So networking is a very important piece of it. Myself, I joined and started with WECIS in a support capacity in 2015, but it wasn't until 2018 that I had the opportunity to attend my first WECIS conference. So it was sitting at those tables in the convention center where I grew my professional network and I found my community and I became a part of something much bigger than myself for the first time in my career. That was in 2018. So in August of 2019, I received a short and sweet message from Dr. Ambereen Siraj at Tennessee Tech University. She's the founder of WECIS organization. And she asked me if I would consider applying to be the executive director of the WECIS organization. So what an honor it is for me to be in this role. I've been in this role since October 1st of 2019. But it is because of the collective strength and power of the cyber sisterhood of WECIS and my first conference in 2018, where I was able to advance in my career because of this growth, this community, this network, this individuals that collectively were rising up. That I'm in this role here right now. So I've been living every day just fulfilled, building out programs that are creating more opportunities for women in cybersecurity. So it is a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me. And I hope I can contribute to this conversation about all wonderful things of the WECIS organization, but also learn from you all as well. So thank you, Diana.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. Okay, so since we're talking about modern networking, maybe people might want to know what some old school networking was like. I'm not kidding you, this is a true story. In the 1990s, I was at an organization where I needed to it was time to get raises for the team I was working with. And in order to get the ears of the people, to network with the ears of the people that I needed to at that organization, I went to a whiskey cigar bar and actually sat and had a cigar with the person that I really needed to talk to, because that was how I was going to be networking. It was him, networking with him and getting his ear. So things have changed. I don't think that there's the same sort of old school network that there once was. Hopefully people don't need to go to whiskey and cigar bars anymore to get the ear of the person that they want to influence to help either themselves or their teams. But what does modern networking look like? I mean, Beth Ann, for you, what is modern networking?
Well, I think a modern networking program is being able to put together a set of people that are both forward-looking in their strategic view around where is security going, where are the careers going, what does that look like, and then new, like Ellen is an amazing example of what cybersecurity and the vision for our teams, what that's going to be. And so what I found is in order for me to we can't solve things on our own. We can't we can't strengthen our resiliency on our own. We can't chart, next chapter in our careers on our own. So what I've found is that the modern way of looking at it is surrounding yourself with forward and also like bi-directional relationships, mentoring or networking, younger generation networking me as someone who needs to understand what next gen technology looks like. The problems and the firefights that we are going to encounter at the code level is what the next gen team are coaching me through in that network. So I think the modern networking program is multifaceted, and it also includes a network of relationships from other countries and regions. So being members of many cybersecurity groups, but some that are overseas, right? So like I4 and different cybersecurity solutions, so that you hear what's happening across the defense fabric from different lenses. So I think we have to constantly have that to be efficient with what's happening in the modern tech space.
Yeah, that's such a great point that part of it being modern is that we can actually network with people around the world, which was much harder to do even a few decades ago. And WESIS, Lynn, it's an international organization. What do we do for modern networking in terms of that reach internationally, and how does WESIS help to connect the globe?
So, yeah, I mean, what really happened in 2020 when we canceled our in-person event, it really made us as an organization think incredibly outside of the box and reduce these barriers that we had up unconsciously, even knowing, very focused on launching and hosting programs that were in person. And all of a sudden we realized that can't be right now. And our community of women in cybersecurity, where we already have so few of us, needed the networking capabilities quicker, faster, and more powerful now more than ever. So with us, when we canceled that in-person event, we went into the virtual conference in less than 5 weeks. All of a sudden we realized that hashtag alone reached 9 million individuals at that virtual conference. So it was the power of this global sisterhood that's out there. And then everything that we started doing from that point moving forward, building out our initiatives and our skill development training programs, it was all focused on the cohort setting, the community setting, because it's the experiences of others and leaning in on your network that makes us grow and expand in all our careers. And then as we go off into one career role, our network continues to grow from there. So WESIS is this global community, and we have representation in over 70 countries. We have over 5,600 members, and these professional affiliates, over 160 student chapters. So we have a strong momentum for women in cybersecurity. It's going very well. But in every program that we built out, it's all about bringing a community together. We're this big global community. We have our student chapters. That's a cohort. That's a community on a campus. Then we have professional affiliates. That's a community around a specialty topic, artificial intelligence, critical infrastructure, or within the region like Mid-Atlantic or West Africa. Wherever those affiliates are. Our mentor-mentee program, we put together a curriculum to upskill and up-level women, but it's in a cohort strategically. And we have 185 mentors and 745 mentees in the program, but they're all in that cohort leaning in on with one another, learning from the shared experiences. So to me, that's what modern networking looks like. And I certainly wish I had it when I was younger. And so everything that we have now, me being a part of it, is just as much as a gift as it is to the community itself. So it's very, very powerful. And globally, having that interaction, to Beth Ann's point. And then also, if anyone follows me on Twitter, they know I'm a big fan that anyone over the age of 45 should be mentored by someone under the age of 30 for their powerful diversity of thought. They are the next generation, and we need to honor and understand those perspectives. And so networking and mentoring goes certainly both ways, everyone learning from one another.
Yes, absolutely. And so, yeah, Ellen, again, thank you for being with us. You mentioned Cyber Patriot. I know there was a talk on that yesterday here, but for anybody that doesn't know what Cyber Patriot is, what is it and how did you get involved? How did you network into Cyber Patriot?
Yeah, so first of all, I think I'm really lucky to grow up in this technology era and getting to have a lot of people in women's cybersecurity to look up to, like the three of you. And yeah, I think getting to Cyber Patriot was really a transformative experience for me. So Cyber Patriot, first of all, is a cyber defense competition for youth across the United States. And there's also different competitions internationally as well. And the main focus is to really get hands-on with trying to defend operating systems, trying to figure out computer networks. And so it works off of real, or I guess, constructed virtual machines, and getting students to actually go in, try to solve these vulnerabilities. And also in the national finals, there's a really cool part where there's live hackers who try to hack into the blue team, which is like what the national finalists are, and we try to defend them for like 4 hours straight. Super tiring experience, but a lot of fun, and a lot of excitement involved as well. And so I got involved in this because of a club at my school, but I know that there's a lot of other clubs across the nation, and a lot of different areas and competitions to look into. Like, for example, there's also capture the flag competitions. There's a lot of great opportunities to learn more that way. And so that's how I got into Cyber Patriot. And since then, I've been trying to, meet other amazing people in cybersecurity. And I've also been getting a bit into like pen testing, trying to break things ethically to learn more as well. So yeah, it's been a great experience.
The hanging years and years ago, someone said to me, I wanted to be part of the radio station at the college where I went. And someone at the radio station said to me, it's the way to get there is the hanging out principle. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he said, just hang out. If you hang out somewhere, people assume that you belong there. And then they start like interacting with you and you're part of the team all of a sudden. So, it's like that. If for anybody who's afraid to dive in, think of the hanging out principle and be part. But it can be hard, right? It can be hard to figure out, how do I get in? We've talked about a lot of different ways. There are professional associations, there are membership communities, there are things that capture the flag. Where to start, Bethany? If you were helping one of your team who maybe needs to network a little bit more, what would you recommend that they do to get started?
Yeah, that's a great question, Diana. I find that in the information security space, there's 12 domains. And so sometimes when we talk about security and information security, we go directly to the hardest pillar of the domain, or the more technical pillar of the domain, which is our cyber defense. But for people that are maybe transitioning careers, returnship, there's a great starting point when you look at the information risk side of an information security department. And there are so many roles that are within a full information security organization that it may be, if you like to, if you're a writer, or if you are an English major, you may start your journey as a technical writer supporting a risk team or security engineers on documenting their architecture diagrams or architecting their project work, because we always need writers, right? And so there's technical starting points, and then there's non-technical starting points. The key is making sure you have a career plan that outlines at least 3 to 5 years of growth targets. Keep in mind that most jobs are requiring a 12 to 18 month commitment. So once you start your job, you're learning about the job and then you're giving back to that company or to that job. So it's a good 18 months. So if you're not mapping out your career goals for like 3 to 5 months, you could sit in 2 jobs and not progress to where you really would like to see yourself go because of that commitment, right? So do a lot of research, look online, understand like different job titles and different roles and what they actually require. And then you can, and obviously through networking, join the community like D3.EC.S5.MS and reach out to security professionals that can guide you through the different roles and what's expected of that. But there is quite a number of paths that permit individuals to onboard into the security space if you're non-technical and then build those skills.
Yeah, that's a great point. And something you said reminded me of back when I was at IBM, we would have this thing called 6 Degrees.
Yeah.
For anybody that knows the old game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, there was a joke about that every actor had been in a movie with someone who was close to Kevin Bacon at some point. But we called it 6 Degrees because it was about basically using our internal networking. IBM's a big company with thousands of people. And I ended up using this when I was at Microsoft too. And sometimes you couldn't find the right person on your first degree. There was no way to find the person you needed at the company. So if you could get to the right person in less than six moves, that was networking moves. So you found somebody close to you that might know somebody who knows the person that you need to speak with. And sometimes with getting started in networking, to your wonderful point, Beth Ann, do some research, find out which area you want, and then maybe you need to talk to some people to find your group.
Yeah. Diana, I think your point, if you don't ask, you won't know. So don't be afraid to ask. Yeah.
Yes. And you may have to ask a few people.
Yeah.
Like at IBM, sometimes we had to ask 4 people to find the right one.
Yeah.
Alan, if I came up to you in the hall and I said, I loved that networking talk that you did at Cyber Talent Week, I want to get into cyber. What should I do? How do I start networking? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I'll try my best to try and give some pointers. So I think, first of all, attending conferences like this is a great one. As part of the ITSP magazine family, we covered a lot of DEF CON, Black Hat, and I got to speak and just network with a lot of people in the space already. And so I think attending conferences, meeting people like the D3.EC.S5.MS conference, I know that one is a lot of great opportunities to meet other women in cybersecurity. And so I think being a part of these conferences is already a first step. And I think one important thing is also trying to talk to the speakers. I remember one time I went to a conference and I just immediately went to the speaker and asked them, can I have a coffee chat with you, or can I learn more about your work? And I think that way you create that direct connection. You can hear their story and kind of forge those connections for future collaboration. Another thing I'd recommend is trying to also be a part of a lot of organizations. So I'm a part of D3.EC.S5.MS too. I think the community is really great. And also a lot of different other technology organizations. I know NCWIT has some great communities, but there's a bunch of online communities now that are popping up and have a lot of international reach, like we talked about and Beth Ann mentioned previously. So yeah, it's a great way to just try to join a lot of communities online. And Dan, like you mentioned, just the hanging out policy. Once you meet with people and hang out with them, learn from them, it's kind of like learning from osmosis. You just automatically start to grow more from their experiences and get constant feedback on new directions and what you could be working on as well.
Yeah, and they expect us there. So Lynn, a lot of us have been name checking D3.EC.S5.MS. And let's say I went to D3.EC.S5.MS in March and met some good people, but now I don't know what else to do. How do I expand the networking? What would you tell someone like that?
So is just to become, so the first step is becoming a part of D3.EC.S5.MS and really just being a part of the community. So whether it be through membership or a student chapter, or professional affiliate, But once you join, there's this member portal and there's special interest groups. And so what I tell everyone is just dive right in. Just like a cybersecurity career, you have to navigate through your networking as well and the different ways and levels of engagement that you're going to have with others. I love the point of hanging out and really just letting yourself and opening yourself up to be an active listener when you're hanging out with others. And then also being very curious. Like if you're shyer and a little intimidated about going up to a speaker, just if you're walking down a hallway, just saying something like, "So tell me about yourself," or "I want to know a little bit more about Diana. How did you become the Diana Kelly that's hosting and moderating this panel right here, right now? What led you in your life to be here?" Those are the type of questions, is just curiosity. It's interesting. And when you enter forward in life, just being interesting or interested in others, their experiences are going to shed light on you, where you're going to be like, aha, I have had my aha moment, and now I aspire to be like that, and this is the route that I'm going to take. And so you will navigate your way. And that's why we have many different ways, like our cyber defense challenge made possible by Target. We have skill development training programs by all sorts of different strategic partners of ours that come together. Cyber fast track, we have that available. So they're all different entry points and gateways and ways for others that are just curious about cybersecurity to see if it's a place for them, or others that really want to hone in and tap on their skills and advance in their skills because of it. It's another way to grow and expand your network. So really just dive right in, be curious, and let that curiosity just lead you through the rabbit holes, just like cybersecurity would, as you're navigating through your career even further. So that's
Lynn, I really like your point, because I think there's this, facade that there was these perfect paths to get to security, and there really isn't. Security, just like to your point, Lynn, it's a job that relies on the woven nature of your experiences, your personality, how you think.
Mm-hmm.
If you are someone who really is inquisitive and always asking questions and exploring, you're going to be really well in certain kinds of like security roles. So I really appreciate your thoughts there, Lynn.
Yeah. And I it's something you said, I also appreciated about the fact that people be interested. And some people have a really hard time networking. And I'd like to take a look at those kinds of people. I know quite a bit about this because this surprises a lot of people, but I'm an incredibly introverted person. Like I'm a true introvert. I only recharge, when I'm alone. I love being around people, but it really exhausts me. And part of the exhaustion is I had a hard time early on figuring out, how do I even talk to people? And I did get some really good advice, which was that ask them about themselves. You don't need to come up with a lot of fascinating, cool stories. Just ask them about themselves, listen, really engage. And you're going to have questions about what they said. So there are going to be more. I mean, you don't want to give anybody the third degree, but Lynn, you were really talking about it very well, of just listen to others. And that starts to make things be a lot easier in terms of the networking. Ellen, any advice you have to people that tend to be shy or introverted, how they can network without getting themselves into a tizzy? I get into a tizzy, I guess. So I'm just projecting.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said about trying to listen to other people and asking them questions. A lot of times, I think it's interesting to ask them how they got to where they are in their point in their journey, and try to understand like what motivates them. I think a great question that I personally love to ask people I talk to is like, what gets you excited? And just hearing like their genuine excitement. Like people can talk so long about all the different things they're curious about, everything that excites them and keeps them up at night, wondering about it, and just like trying to understand their interests, trying to kind of get a perspective on what other people are excited about. Especially if they're in the same space as you, like what are other people thinking about, and kind of looking at the Hamming question too, which is like, what are the biggest problems in the space and how can we all help to solve them? So yeah, I think that's a great way to just get started.
Yeah, tap into their passion and they'll carry the part of the conversation. Beth Ann, you're a great leader. You have a very large team, so you must have a lot of personalities on your team. How do you help your introverts get out into the network?
Yeah, I think either Lynn or you or Ellen said it at the beginning, is celebrating the diversity of thought that's on the team. And sometimes the problem solving capabilities comes through the individuals that are more, sit back and introspective. And it's really celebrating the strength that each person brings at the team and allowing them to flourish from the point of where they are, and not making them, transition into something else. And that was a really long learning for me, like a journey. I am introverted, but I'm very more action oriented, like over the top a little bit sometimes. And so my team, they have helped, again, the networking and cross mentoring. I've been learning from them on, how to continue to celebrate that. So just letting people flourish from the point or place of where they are. As an introvert, you actually will then begin to flourish and find ways to network or in a community, just by celebrating your own strength.
Yeah.
I just think maybe when people think they're introverted, they don't necessarily think they have something to contribute, which is not the case. It's their style of contributing is slightly different than the person who is more extroverted and talks up front, but it doesn't mean it's less important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. And Lynn, what would you advise a member of the community that's a little introverted but wants to network?
Oh, but I'm an introvert myself, Diana.
All right.
We're all like in the same community.
We are, maybe not Ellen. She doesn't strike me as introverted. She strikes me as outgoing.
That's true.
I am amazed at my friends and colleagues and peers that are so extroverted. They get charged up with the energy and excitement of all these others around them. But I do have to recharge with my alone time. And so, but for me, is stemming from that place of curiosity, is always a very comfortable, genuine, authentic place for me to be sitting at, and identify what makes me feel comfortable here, and how can I let other authentic selves shine by asking these type of questions. And truly, I am interested in others' well-being and their journeys and their place in that. I love Beth Ann's point about leadership, how that was a learning process for you, for just identifying those strengths and letting those flourish, and then really just forming your team around that. And that's leadership. The inclusive culture of a company stems from leaderships, and it's the leaders that are active listeners, that sit back and pay attention. And I think the value that introverts bring to the table is that we process things a little bit differently. And perhaps for me, I know I process things, I take it all in and I reflect, and then I organize it and how I feel like would be best to help facilitate a team or mobilize volunteers, or all those different types of activities from a nonprofit perspective. So I think everyone just has their contributions to add, and it's just letting everyone shine in their own space.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, and there is, even if you're an introvert, you can absolutely network. They're not mutually exclusive. So I hope that everybody listening that's a little bit nervous about networking, maybe if you can take one thing away, that introverts can network very successfully too. Mentors and advocates and mentees, and Beth Ann, you brought up something that is just so important about bidirectional mentorship. Not just, we seem to think of mentorship as we're always going to get mentored by someone older and more experienced, which is definitely one component, but there's a lot of mentorship of learning from people that are younger than us, because they have a lot of knowledge. And I actually, at one point, I got some influencer thing, and which shocked me, and I should have actually reached out to the person at IBM, Alex Wiley, who got me kicking and screaming onto Twitter, because I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be talking about stuff on LinkedIn. And he was, I think he was 24 years old at the time. He was like, older person in the chain, and I'm going, I don't want to do it. And he was so patient with me, and he mentored me into how to have communication online. It's network with people by, by getting out there and being a little bit more active. So we really can learn so much from its orbital. Ellen, is anybody actually that's older than you being mentored by you? Are you doing a reverse mentorship with anyone?
Oh, that's interesting. I do have a lot of conventional mentors, as in older people mentoring me. I hope they do find it interesting to talk to me too. Yeah, I have a lot of mentors in the tech space, including you and some other of my friends in science and in tech. And I think sometimes when they might possibly like have reverse mentorship is when I'm working on a project and I go to them for help, and possibly they can learn more about what I'm working on. I think particularly this is relevant to I'm doing research in AI right now, and so what some of my mentors in AI, they constantly listen to my presentations. I try to get feedback from them, but I think through the process they're also getting up to date on what's the cutting edge, the state of the art AI, and also the new things that are kind of popping up that people are interested in. And so I hope that they're also able to gain something from it as well. I know I gain a lot of it, and I hope I am able to give some of that back as well.
You definitely do. And Beth Ann, mentorship versus advocate, especially in a corporate environment, what's the difference between those two relationships, and why might somebody want both?
Yeah, no, for sure. There's always the need to have a balance between the mentor and advocate, or sometimes you hear the word sponsor, same concept. The mentors are the individuals that are going to help close maybe a knowledge or competency gap. And throughout my career, and probably most people that I've talked to, you will never have one mentor that fits all the need. You probably want to, depending on areas that you're trying to build, grow, or become more, solid in your understanding. A sponsor is someone who is in the organization or has the ability to influence decisions in the organization, that's at a more senior level, and is really there looking out on behalf of your advancement and making sure that you're receiving opportunities, making sure that the visibility is there. And that's important because there's times when decisions are being made that sponsor is really speaking on behalf of you. And so you need that representation when you're, throughout your career. And when we talk about in career growth, being clear with your sponsors and your mentors what your objectives are, what you need, and what you'd like them to help you with. And it is okay to be very direct in your ask.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people feel like, they want to tippy toe a little bit, but yeah, it's like, just be clear. Lynn, one of the really cool things you mentioned, the D3.EC.S mentorship program, and one of the cool things about it is that it's not just one-on-one mentorship, it's cohort-based mentorship, which is really powerful. And actually, my experience with D3.EC.S was the first time I was part of I led a cohort mentorship team. Can you talk a little bit about why D3.EC.S does it that way, and how mentorship cohorts can really help?
Yes, I'd love to talk about it because we had a traditional one-on-one mentoring program. And what we realized is that mentors stepping into that mentoring role with all great intentions might not necessarily already have cultivated within themselves the mentoring skill set, or the coaching skill set, or the leadership skill set. So they're saying, yes, I have a lot to share and I would like to be a mentor, but yet they don't quite have the skills in place for it. So what we just wanted to do was essentially mentor the mentor, and we wanted to bridge that gap and deepen the relationship so much faster than on the one-on-one mentoring, and where we felt like there was this communication gap where the mentor was kind of waiting for the mentee to reach out to them, and the mentees We don't know their experiences. We don't know what they've gone through, if they've experienced some job trauma, if perhaps it's not of their nature or their culture. They feel like they're interfering or they don't want to bother, Beth Ann or Diana in their lives. They don't want to bother them with their what they perceive as a tiny struggle that they're going through, where the mentor wants to share their and be a part of that growth for them, that professional growth. So we designed a curriculum that is to upskill and uplevel women no matter where they're at in their career, getting them ready for their next level of advancement. And those are the resources that the mentors share with the mentees. So when they enter into the cohort setting, they already have this resources, like the conversation has already started. We bridged that gap, that awkward, you could start the mentoring cohort. Let's get to know one another. Let's be curious about each other and interested in each other's lives. And what are your goals? But then let's break down, what are these resources? What do they mean to you? What really resonated with you? And it kind of, everyone starts loosening up after that first cohort. Come your second cohort, the relationships get deeper. When you meet your third month in a row with that cohort, all of a sudden, as a mentor, you don't even have to say a word. The mentees themselves are leveling one another up with, it's like this beautiful relationships flourish in this space of entering from this point of let's just learn and grow from each other. So I love the WeSys mentor mentee program because of the cohort setting, and it's building that community. But now those that were in my cohort, they're the greatest of all friends. We share, one just had a baby, another just had a job promotion, another one just moved to Connecticut, and we're all celebrating one another nonstop as like the greatest of all friends. It's like we've known each other a lifetime. It's beautiful.
It is. It is. It's truly powerful. Yeah.
Diana, I wanted to share something with you, kicking and screaming in Twitter. When I first joined Twitter, I was like, how the heck am I going to network on Twitter, And I just observed what others were doing. And I was like, wow, I learned so much about the InfoSec community and about inclusion and diversity and that culture from Twitter, way before I would ever read or hear about it in the news prior to that, but also the connections and the friendships that you develop. So when I went to RSA for the first time, the RSA conference, and that's where I met you the first time, Diana, when you were coming on board as a WeSys board member, I already knew Marco and Sean from ITSP Magazine, from Twitter. I knew so many other folks from Twitter. So I walked into this conference not knowing anyone, not knowing what to expect, seeing all these familiar faces and already knowing their personalities from how they presented themselves on Twitter. And it was like I already walked into this incredible community like I've known them forever, and we all only knew each other virtually. So the power of our younger generation mentoring us into tapping into our resources on social media has been extremely valuable to so many. So I love it.
That's a wonderful segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is that what platforms do you find are most effective for you with with Twitter, and you're a Twitter champ. There's also the scary you had that scary thing the scary monster at Halloween that was following you around, right? Like that was,
the mummy.
The mummy. Oh my gosh, yeah, the mummy. but here it's interesting, right? Because you're very professional in your interactions and you're very effective, but you bring in a little personal. Here's the mummy, and people remember the mummy. I have my dog in back of me at LinkedIn, and often people will say, "Oh, I love German Shepherds." I'm like, "Yeah, she's not a Shepherd, she's a mutt," but her name's Nora, and then we have a conversation. But how do we balance it? And I'm going to start with you, Ellen, because you're the most native here. How do you balance being interesting and engaging, but not giving away stuff that you're going to be embarrassed about in a few years?
Yeah, I think everyone has a different balance. It's interesting how some people on Twitter, like Elon Musk, just go all out. And yeah, there's a lot of people who are more professional. Like there's a lot of teens I know who really follow the philosophy of building in public, or like startups also in this space who are just putting out their journey out there and just laying out, I'm starting a company, I'm taking you on my journey, and then I'm going to launch a product, and kind of that way of engaging a community. And then there's also the different type of posting, which is like posting your thoughts. And I think this is the one that I personally love to do. It's just like posting thoughts, curiosities, questions out there, and then having other people who are also like curious about similar things interact with that and seeing just the new ideas that come from that. Personally, I think Twitter is a more like casual posting platform. And then for more professional interactions, probably go to LinkedIn. I think that's where lots of networking is meant to happen, because everyone who's on LinkedIn is open towards like sharing their profile, and most people are open to connect. And so I think a lot of times cold outreach I'll do through LinkedIn, but meeting friends, meeting communities, Twitter is a great place for that.
Yeah. All right. Beth Ann, preferred social platforms, and what are your rules to navigating them?
Well, I'm going to have to admit, I'm sort of like in the 80s here. I'm a little slow to the party. So LinkedIn is definitely my preferred platform, and it primarily because it mirrors my personality, right? And so I really like, Ellen, your perspective of, you sort of, you use the tool and mirror it to the type of person that you are. So I may have to tap you, Ellen, for some coaching here, because I need some coaching. I always say I'm one of those persons, like I take the longest route or whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna maybe have to catch up with you guys on our next session and let you know how I learned, because I'm not there. I am definitely not there right now.
I think your LinkedIn game is strong.
I like my LinkedIn is, for sure. I really appreciate that as a platform, but I'm open to learn more.
And Lynn, any other, in addition to your mummy, what are any other tips you have for people to maximize their effectiveness on social?
I totally second Ellen's observation about Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is professional. Twitter is people shine, their kind of personalities come out a little bit. And so, it's just about joining in, and you're following a hashtag that is of interest to you, like the hashtag women in cybersecurity. I use that hashtag constantly. I follow so many other cybersecurity hashtags. I mean, all you got to do is search it, and it pops like threads and threads of interesting conversations pop up once you search your. So if you're just starting out, search your hashtags both on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And those are the two platforms that I feel like have helped me with my networking with on social media. But I love them both.
Yeah. Okay. So networking can be a way that you find jobs too. Like we find mentors, we find friends, or you find ways, to interact with the community, but jobs as well. I actually have gotten every job since 1997 through networking. So I didn't apply for it. Somebody came to me and said, "Would you please apply for this job? Because we think," or just here's the job, depending. Which it shocks a lot of people, because that's, well, A, it's a long time ago, but B, like that's the power of networking professionally, is when you start getting those kinds of communities around you. Beth Ann, again, you lead such a large team. What's the breakdown when you're going to hire? How important is networking in those relationships?
Yeah, it's really important. The first is making sure. Sorry, I don't know if there's noise back behind me, but it's first, it's making sure you have your elevator pitch. Like, really come to that conversation of if you're going to use your network to then, and Diana, to your point, it may be 2 or 3 degrees of separation before you get to that hiring person. You always want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So take some time out, write down a couple elevator pitches, and those elevator pitches should be, summarizing your experience, who you are, and make it relatable to the industries, right? Maybe because there's different requirements or expectations, whether you're looking in the financial industry, fintech, healthcare, insurance, retail. So you want at least maybe 2 or 3, and you put those in your back pocket, and then you start to build your campaigns. Now, on the hiring side, from the perspective of looking out across the marketplace, we really are looking for those competencies, problem solving, analytical, communication, influencing. I mean, influencing is such a big competency because sometimes in the security space, you are helping to facilitate good security practices on teams and departments you don't have direct authority over, right? So how do you communicate upwards, sideways, lateral? But that is part of what your network brings to the table. They'll coach you through it. They'll maybe vouch for you, like when that member introduces you to the hiring manager to say, hey, this person's really good at the following, skills. So the networking, being very systematic about it. This is a business. You are a brand. So you want to manage yourself and communicate yourself, polished, professional, like a brand, and just put a little investment there. It really pays off in the long run.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Ellen, ITSP, I'm curious, how did you find them? Was that a networking? How did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually an interesting story because I was a guest on some of the ITSP podcast episodes. And so just hanging around the space, being someone in cybersecurity, and being a part of those conversations was what kind of struck that connection to me and Sean and Marco. And then eventually when an opportunity arose, they asked me if I would like to be a host. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I think, like you mentioned, Diana, it's like opening doors, like just hanging around people in the space. And then when opportunity comes, there's more opportunity to work together, and just being around interesting people will unlock I think a lot of opportunities for that.
And Lynn, any thoughts on your experience of networking leading to jobs and how to make that more effective?
Yeah, well, that's all that WE-SIS is about. We're here to bridge that gap, is to make the point A, to point B, make those connections happen. So that's every program that we build is to bridge that gap and make the connection from being a WE-SIS member to our strategic partners, their jobs, and how could we make it more cohesive, more streamlined. But Ellen, I love your story about ITSP Magazine, because they saw your authentic self. And they tapped into that to let it shine as you stepped into your space as a podcaster. I mean, that speaks volumes. That's advocacy right there. That's them being advocates of you and you stepping into your space because of that. So, I mean, this is just like proof of concept that how important networking and putting yourself out there, diving in, do it afraid. If you have apprehensions, just putting yourself out there anyway, because what do you have to lose? It's all learned experience that we continually do. And even putting yourself out there on social media, yes, it is vulnerable. You are exposing a part of yourself when you put yourself out there on social media, but you are also making connections and learning from others as well. So, all these are just life skills that you just grow and build on. So I love all the stories. And Beth Ann, I took some notes about you. The communicate upwards, sideways, lateral. I told you I was going to learn so much. I've been jotting down things every step of the way. So thank you for your shared knowledge.
All right. I see Val. Val, do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
From this audience? Okay, great. Ellen, let's start with you. What would you say for people that are watching this? And they know they need to network more. They want to network more. They're not quite sure what to do. What's the most important thing for them to do after they watch this to go out and get started with it?
I would just say try to be friends and find people you find interesting. I think having an online community, at least personally for me, I have most of my closest friends I've actually met online, and I think we've all talked about this before, and Lynn mentioned, going to RSA and meeting all our Twitter friends. But yeah, I think especially just try to make noise, put yourself out there and then try to meet people. Oftentimes you'll learn the most just from the people you spend the most time with. And so it's like the phrase like you're the average of your 5 closest friends is definitely very true, even for networking. And so just trying to, if you see someone cool online, just like reach out. Like everyone's a human being on the other side, and there's a lot of opportunity just to be friends with people, just to work and collaborate on cool projects. And so I'd say just try to reach out and just take the opportunity, because a lot of times reaching out isn't even like a consideration on our minds. Like I know one of my biggest mentors, I watched her TED Talk and then I just reached out to her on LinkedIn. But a lot of times we might just watch the TED Talk, and if we don't have that like preconception that we can reach out, then it becomes like a closed door. And so I think just coming in with the mindset that everyone is at some point just looking to or like open to sharing and meeting new people. And so just trying to strike that first connection.
I love that. And it's really such a good piece of advice. I mean, there have been people that, in cyber who are luminaries. And I thought, oh, I'll never get to speak to that person. I would never have approached them online. And then when I met them through some experience, they're like, oh, you should have reached out. I would have loved to talk to you. Or, one had actually read one of my books. And I was like, so it's true. Just reach out to people. We tend to put people on pedestals, but, reach out. Not everybody's always going to have time, but when they do, it's a good connection. So thank you, Ellen. Lynn, your piece of advice.
Well, I mean, you, Diana, Beth Ann, Ellen, the three of you individuals, look at the powerful women that you are and how approachable and conversational you are, and how, open you are to having these discussions. So it goes to show that just reaching out is just a powerful tool. But if this is something that makes you uncomfortable, just setting your growth mindset. And everyone, I think a common thread here is that some things you have to put yourself in that uncomfortable area. Don't resist it, just embrace it and go forward because of it. Because just like learning to swim, you have to swim in order to learn how to swim. You have to be courageous in order to be a courageous being. Like you have to put yourself out there. It is a skill set and it can be learned. And so that growth mindset is reach out to 5 people that you're following on LinkedIn that you would like to aspire to be. Start with that today. Make those connections. Like, hey, I really appreciated this conversation. Start with Diana, Beth Ann, and Ellen during today's conference. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. These are the types of things that start it, and then the momentum keeps it going strong. You get more confidence, you build more comfort in it, and then you grow and expand on those skill sets. So
yes, thank you. Great advice. And Beth Ann.
Out of the themes today, and again, I thank you so much for enriching me today, Diana, as always, and Lynn and Ellen. I had a professor who said to me once, you get once in life to prepare and then you're on. And what I want to share that is to just say everything that encompasses who you are as a person is what makes you ready to do the next thing. So try not to place pressure on yourself. Just to Lynn's point, step out and start, maybe small steps or bigger steps. But you'd be surprised how much you have in your skill and competency toolkit that will make you ready to do some of this work now versus thinking you have to wait a couple years. You're ready now, and just give yourself that grace.
Yeah, love it. Thank you all so much. Val, I don't know if you want to say anything before we close.
Well, I'm speechless, I should say. No, but this is this is always you put together the leaders that you are, and you are spellbound with the knowledge that comes in. And I see Ellen getting the best of everything, right? So can't wait to see the great things that you and I tell that with all admiration that I have for the younger generation that are much greater and better than what we could be. We had to kind of work on a gravel road, and I'm sure that's going to be a little bit smoother. But I believe this discussion reflects on the journey that this leadership team has made, and that is the intent that. The next generation, the next generation of cybersecurity leaders, as well as any industry leaders, and the practitioners, they have to deal with less. And of course, there'll be new challenges, right? We are in a very dynamic environment, and that is why these resources are useful. I mean, the whole VSIS environment and the platform itself. Think about how it has kind of infused so much enthusiasm in cybersecurity for not only women but also mentors and partners who are there, going along. So I thank you for each of you for your time, your contribution, and your support. I'm sure this is the first of many. The ideas that you shared and the experiences are going to be extremely helpful as we go forward with our journey. And we put together the Cyber Talent Week. It's a very human-centric event, as you can think about, and everything that you just said is going to be extremely useful. So thank you again, and looking forward to the next conversation that we have on this one.